May 27, 2011. California. Hayward is a small town in Alameda County. Quiet, at first glance unremarkable. Security cameras in the underground parking garage record a young woman descending the stairs. She is carrying nothing extra, only a bag with personal belongings and a medical school student badge. She walks confidently, but not in a hurry. Her steps quietly echo in the empty concrete space. Out of frame in the darkness stands a car that has been appearing in this area for several days without an explainable reason. This woman is Michelle Hoang Thi, 26. Her life was filled with plans, studies, and loved ones. Her disappearance will become one of the loudest and most emotionally charged stories in the California crime chronicle of the last decade. A story of betrayal, obsession, and how one unrecognized internal breakdown can turn into a tragedy that will shake an entire community. None of her friends or colleagues could have guessed that in a few hours, her name would appear on police reports. No one knew that a man who had long ago chosen the role of executioner for himself was walking next to her. And the worst thing is that no one noticed or wanted to notice the signs that could have saved her life. That day, Michelle, a student at Samuel Merritt College of Medicine, was interning at Kaiser Permanente Medical Center. Her workday was scheduled down to the minute, completing procedures, interacting with patients, and following mentors' orders. She behaved as usual with her colleagues, friendly but focused. According to witnesses, she had been on the phone a few hours before she disappeared, but did not seem alarmed. Around 7 in the evening, she left the building and headed to her car, a white Honda SUV. The last footage from the cameras shows her getting into the car. What happened next is a mystery. A few hours later, Michelle's phone stopped responding. Messages sent to her remained unread. The next morning, her car was found half a mile from the medical center, parked on a quiet street. The car was locked. Inside, there were bloodstains on the upholstery, signs of a struggle, and personal belongings dropped. Even at this stage, the police realized that a possible crime was at stake. During the first day, the investigation checked the standard versions: unauthorized departure, an accident, kidnapping for ransom. But none of these scenarios worked out. Cameras in the area recorded a car similar to a vehicle belonging to one of Michelle's former friends. This name had already flashed in informal conversations between friends: Giselle Divag Esteban. In the past, they were close. They studied together, shared news, spent time in the company of mutual friends. But a few years before the tragedy, their relationship deteriorated. Giselle began to avoid meetings. Communication came to naught. Michelle preferred not to talk about the reasons, only evasively saying that their paths diverged. The police began to assemble a chain of evidence. CCTV footage showed that on the day of her disappearance, Esteban's car had driven past the medical center several times, then stopped briefly in an area where the entrance and parking lot could be observed. Cell phone data confirmed that Michelle and Giselle's phones had been moving together for about an hour after Michelle left work. Both devices were tracking away from Hayward and toward more remote and less populated areas. Biological trace analysis provided another compelling argument. Michelle's DNA was found on Esteban's shoes and inside her car. This ruled out a chance meeting. The motive became clear after questioning Giselle's acquaintances. She was convinced that Michelle had allegedly had a relationship with her ex-partner. Not a single witness confirmed these rumors, but for Giselle, it became an obsession. A psychological fixation on the imaginary betrayal turned her into a shadow that followed Michelle for weeks. Giselle was born and raised in California. In her youth, nothing foreshadowed the events that would happen. She studied, had friends, and made career plans. But over the years, she began to show signs of social isolation, conflict, and resentment. She reacted painfully to criticism and saw threats where there were none. When her relationship with her partner went wrong, she did not accept this as part of her life experience. Instead of letting go of the situation, Giselle looked for someone to blame, and she found him in her ex-girlfriend. A world gradually formed inside her, in which Michelle was the source of all troubles. Psychiatrists who participated in the analysis of the case pointed out signs of paranoid personality disorder, But even such disorders do not always exclude the ability to realize and plan one's actions. Giselle conducted surveillance, chose the moment, and chose a place where witnesses would not see the attack. This was a conscious preparation. Despite the strong evidence, the case was complicated by the lack of a body. Police and volunteers searched forests, canyons, and wastelands. In the summer, the heat and dry vegetation complicated the search. Only in September, a group of volunteers exploring the area of the Sunol Canyon came across human remains. There were no personal belongings nearby. An examination confirmed that it was Michelle Hoang. The condition of the remains indicated that the body was left there shortly after the disappearance. In the fall of 2012, the trial began. Prosecutors built the accusation on 3 pillars: physical evidence, cell phone data, and video recordings recording the movements of Esteban's car. The defense tried to introduce an element of mental disorder, arguing that the defendant was unable to fully control her actions. But the expert testimony diverged. Some experts pointed to planning, others to a distorted perception of reality. In American law, to recognize insanity, it is necessary to prove a complete lack of understanding of the nature of one's actions. The jury found that Giselle knew what she was doing and acted with intent. Verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Sentence: 25 years to life. Michelle's family greeted the verdict with restraint. There was no shouting, hysteria, or applause in the courtroom, only heavy breathing and a look directed at the jury. For them, these words, guilty of first-degree murder, were not a victory. It was just a legal point in a story that began long before May 2011 and in their lives would never end. Michelle was not only a daughter, a sister, a friend to them, she was a bearer of hope, a symbol of perseverance. Her path to medicine was a story that neighbors told with pride, a girl from an immigrant family who made it into a difficult profession, ready to help people. And all this was destroyed in one evening. The mother's gaze, sitting in the front row, was motionless. She listened to the dry legal formulations and understood that they would not return her daughter's voice, nor the familiar sound of footsteps in the house, nor the morning laughter in the kitchen. The horror of the crime is not only that it took a life, it took the entire world that was built around that life. For society, this case became a subject of debate. Some saw Giselle Esteban as the embodiment of evil, cold-blooded and calculating. Some, on the contrary, spoke of a sick psyche, of signals that no one noticed or chose not to notice. The question of sick or guilty remained without a definitive answer. The law had its say, but the moral dilemma remained hanging in the air. Psychiatrists, criminologists, journalists, all agreed on one thing. The tragedy could have been prevented. If intervention had occurred earlier, if relatives or social services had seen the impending danger, history could have gone differently. But there was no intervention, and as often happens, the realization came too late. Michelle's name is now listed in police reports, crime reports, and databases. But for those who knew her, this is not a number or a line in a report. This is a smile that is impossible to forget, and a light that went out suddenly and forever. In the archives of our project, this case now occupies a special place. It has become a symbol of how personal obsession, fueled by the silent indifference of others, can lead to a point from which there is no return. We have told you stories about serial killers, about confusing disappearances, about crimes without punishment. But this story is special because it has everything. A victim who had dreams, a criminal whose inner darkness remained invisible for a long time, and a system that again did not have time. This was case number 99, and like all the previous ones, it will remain with us, not as a sensation, but as a reminder that behind every loud headline, there is a real life that can no longer be returned.